Welcome to Traveling Oracle, the magical podcast, where we talk energetics, spirituality, and how you can use this etheric knowledge to drastically change, transform, and up-level all areas of your life. Are you ready for the glow up? Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of Traveling Oracle, a magical podcast. What do I always say, guys? Every episode I say how excited I am to be here, and I promise y'all, it's the truth. It's the truth. I am not lying to you, and I am especially excited for this episode because we're going into my ayahuasca experience for this episode. And y'all, I've been I don't even want to say avoiding, but I've been putting this topic off a bit because I needed enough distance between me and it. Because it was such a strange experience. That's number one. It was such a strange experience. Even the texture of reality in that experience, my mind just, and I think that's what I'm going to title this episode. I'm going to title this episode, Ayahuasca Almost Broke My Mind. Before we get into everything, let me stop for a minute, let me pause, and let me ask all the spiritual beings that travel with me for my good to come into this space right now, come into my field right now and help me to relay the things that people need to hear to drastically change their lives. Help me to relay the things that people need to hear to drastically up-level their lives. I don't want just listeners. I want listeners who are always changing, always growing, always getting better, always moving forward, closer and closer towards their goals. Thank you. Y'all, I just heard that I need to pull a card, so give me 1 second. Spirit, what is it that you want to say in this moment to the listeners right now? What is it? I feel that you want to say something. Nope, that's too many cards. Oh, okay. Some cards jumped out. All right. Some cards jumped out, y'all. And let me shuffle the oracle deck. What do you want to say? This one. Okay. So the cards that jumped out, so the first one is the Age of Light. Actually, I'm going to leave that one for last because I think it sums up everything. I'm going to go with the two tarot cards, and I'm also doing a video recording of this message. So I'm going to put this on the screen. Here we go. We got the Seven of Cups reversed, and we have the Page of Swords reversed. What's the message, Spirit? A lot of you have so many ideas and you've locked them up in your brain like a prison. A lot of you are prisons for ideas and Spirit's calling you out. Ooh, I don't know who that is for, but it's a strong word. The Page of Swords reversed, like you're about to start this and you don't do it. You're about to start that and you don't do it. And a lot of you, you're getting divine inspiration. You're getting divine guidance, but your brain is where divine guidance goes to die. Look at this. Seven of Cups is a bunch of cups. This is seven, yeah. A bunch of cups with different things coming out of it. A bunch of different opportunities. So many business ideas, so many project ideas, so many ideas on how you can benefit the community, on how you can change the industry that you're in. So many good ideas, so much divine inspiration, but you lock it up in your mind and it never gets free. It never gets to come out into the world. And so Spirit is calling a few of you out who are listening, saying, act on the divine inspiration that comes to you. Act on the divine inspiration that comes to you. The oracle card that came out was hold on, let me see if I can get this in focus. The Age of Light. Wow, you've been training for this for lifetimes. And on the imagery, there's being in the middle of some sacred geometry surrounded by light. A lot of you guys are being so divinely directed, but you're not trusting that you are, and you're not trusting in your own abilities. You're not trusting in yourself because a lot of you are struggling with subconscious beliefs. Oh, I can make a whole episode out of this, but this is about ayahuasca. So I'm going to just cut this right here and say, if you are struggling with subconscious beliefs that are holding you back, if you are struggling with emotional trauma, if you are struggling with things in your mind, your energetic body, things that you know are holding you back, join one of my programs to clear them out. Because it's only through clearing out this emotional junk, it's only through clearing out this energetic junk, all the trauma, all the negative programming, all the negative beliefs, it's only through clearing these things out that you will be able to actually feel your own vibrational frequency and actually know what you want to do in this world, actually know what you desire to be in this world, and actually have the confidence, the drive, and the balls to do something about it. I'm gonna leave that right there. Do with that what you will. All right, let's get into ayahuasca. Where my little mic gone? Jesus, sorry guys. I had a mic and then I just put it down. I hope that audio isn't crappy. Anyway, ayahuasca is one of the most powerful plant medicines out there that I know of. I'm sure there are others, but ayahuasca is something that's been calling me for a while. And I was hoping to be in Peru for the rest of, towards the end of the year, I should say. And that is where I thought ayahuasca was gonna find me. But as I said that to one of my friends, I heard a voice say, no, it's gonna find you before that. And it did. And y'all, I did 3 sittings, back to back. When I say back to back, one day of sitting, the next day is the second, the next day is the third. There's so much, guys, that I struggle with figuring out where to start in a way that makes sense for another human being. So I guess that would be the beginning, wouldn't it? So at an ayahuasca ceremony, there is a facilitator. And I must stop right here because I think I need to put a safety plug in here. For the ladies out there, be very careful who you sit ayahuasca with, because you are in such an altered state that anyone can take advantage of you. Anyone. When it started to ramp up for me and I was like, wait a minute, I have no control over anything. If anyone here has nefarious intentions, I would be taken advantage of. I mean, granted, I'm protected in other ways, so I knew it would be fine. Not everyone has asked for that level of protection. And some people through their actions have removed their layers of protection without, even knowing it. So be very, very careful. Even in my research, I've come across women who've claimed that they were taken advantage of by the shamans who conducted the ceremonies. So if you are doing this as a woman alone going to a random country, you've got to be discerning. I would say go with a friend. I would recommend a female shaman. I did it with a female shaman and I'm so thankful because in the times during the ceremony when I needed help, she was there to help me in a very close way. She was there to hold my hand. She was there to hug me when I needed it and I was crying. She was very much in close quarters with me. And if it were a random man, I don't know in that state, I might not have cared, but just looking back in hindsight, I'm happy I did it with a female shaman. And so if you're going to be doing it by yourself, I would recommend looking up a female shaman or going there with someone who can look out for you, etc., etc. So that's that. Also, before I get in it, I want to talk about preparation for ayahuasca. You need to prepare your mind. And I'm going to contradict myself a bit by saying I'm going to share with you how I think you should prepare, but also in the same breath, I'm going to say there's nothing that will prepare you for what's about to happen. If it's your first time. If it's your first time, there's nothing on this planet. There is nothing in your existence. There's nothing anywhere that's going to prepare you for what's about to happen. However, I do believe that it's important for you to go into this experience as prepared as you can be. I remember after the first ceremony, I sat there and I said to myself, why did no one prepare me? I was so ill prepared. And I am someone who has her own spiritual practice. I am someone who meditates daily. If not daily, I might miss a day or two, but in general, I meditate daily. I have my own spiritual practice. I am not new to the spiritual world. I am not new to altered states of reality. But after I was unprepared. No one told me. So sis, bro, who is listening, I am telling you, you will not ever be prepared for what's about to happen to you. It's the most life-changing experience that you will ever undergo. It's literally like having a near-death experience when you almost die or when you're on deathbed and you're able to come back. You kind of like get a second chance in life. Everything shifts for you. When you talk to people who have those kind of serious diseases and were at one point sure they were about to die, but for whatever reason it cleared up and they're fine now, they're completely different persons. When you have people who had car accidents, any sort of those sort of things, near-death experiences change your perspective in a powerful way, in a way that you will never be the same again. And ayahuasca is a planned, curated, near-death experience. So, how do you prepare? You need a meditation practice. If you've been following me for a while, oh, and by the way, guys, I created a new Instagram because after my ayahuasca ceremonies, I just didn't feel like the same person anymore. And I heard, do a new Instagram. I was like, okay. So I made a completely new Instagram that's more aligned with who I am right now. Just a little plug. So I'll put the link down below. Follow it to keep up with any of the spiritual things that I'm about to be revealing, because y'all, it is a lot. It is a lot. Meditation. If you've been following me for a while, you know I preach meditation everywhere I go. Meditation is one of the single most powerful tool on this planet, in this reality, in this existence, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to understanding the makeup, the texture of physical reality. Meditation. Point blank and the period. If you do not have a meditation practice and you are interested in spirituality, or you feel called to go into spirituality, or you are in the spiritual industry, or you are in the spiritual world and you're not meditating, what are you doing? You are missing out. You are missing out. Meditation hits the mind, body, and the spirit. One action. Mind, body, and the spirit. And so the reason why meditation is really important to get into before ayahuasca, I would recommend a month before ayahuasca. If you're on crunch time, 2 weeks is fine. It's because ayahuasca rampages through your brain, rampages through your mind. Picture like some big monster thing, just like, you ever watch those superhero shows, like when they're fighting and stuff, like everything around them gets destroyed, like all the buildings, like the giants are stepping on the buildings, or the superheroes are like being knocked into cars and like everything's being destroyed? That's what it looks like in my mind when ayahuasca is running through it. Like she's just like going and she is just tearing out everything that doesn't need to be there. She is just like boom, 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 boom. If you've never had anything like that happen to you before, if you've never accessed part of your minds in that way, it is going to hit you so hard, it will shatter your reality, and it will take you a while to recover afterwards. because meditation takes you to altered states of reality. Meditation takes you to different dimensions depending on how high you get or what frequency you are able to attune yourself to. But you have smaller doses or smaller versions of that type of altered state in meditation. And so having a daily practice gives you that experience in smaller doses so your mind can acclimate, so you can get used to reality shifting in that manner for you, so you can get used to feeling those parts of your brains come alive, those parts of your brain come alive, so you can get used to perceiving reality in a different way, because that's a part of what also tries to break your mind in ayahuasca. It's seeing the reality of what is, seeing the other dimensions, seeing the underbelly of reality, seeing the wires, the underwires of reality, so to speak, and then coming back into the reality and trying to hold those two things as true. All your life, you're told and you're programmed to believe it's just physical reality. It's just physical reality. Yeah, you have your mind, but your mind is only filled with thoughts. That's it. That's it. And then this thing just rips the veil from your eyes and you see all these dimensions. You see all these beings. You see all these other things and you're like, what? And then you come back to the reality that tells you there's nothing else. And everyone's like, there's nothing else. But you're like, but I saw it. But I felt it, but I spoke to it. And your brain almost shivers at the thought or the weight of holding these two things as true. Meditation. Second thing I would recommend is yoga. Yoga, because when the spirit of ayahuasca is running through your mind, rampaging through your mind, rampaging through your body, there is so much light that's, I don't know if it's channeled into you or it's being generated from your centers as your chakras are being unblocked, as things are being, unblocked and light is being moved through your body, energy is being moved through your body. I don't know if it's generated from you or it's channeled and downloaded into you, but whatever it is, there is so much light in your body. And if your body is not used to perceiving energy in that way, it can be another shock to the system. It can be another overload, what is happening? Because post ayahuasca, I had so much light in my body. I could physically feel it. I felt like I was going to spontaneously combust. It was absolutely crazy. I've never felt that level of energy and light in my body before. So much so that I had to put my hands on the earth at some points. Not during the ceremony, this is after. I had to go outside and put my hands on the earth and send some of the light down into the earth to just get it out of my body. And when I did that, I felt the relief. My body was holding so much light. It was not used to holding that level of light. So much white light. That was absolutely eye-opening. There was so much energy in my body that at 1 a.m. for maybe 5 days after, I had to have a cardio session in my room to burn some of that energy. I must have looked like a crazy person. If you could have seen me in my hotel, you'd have been like, this bitch crazy. Me in the hotel, 1 a.m. in the morning, doing jumping jacks, then running on the spot, then doing squats. I had to burn some of that energy because if I laid down with that energy, I was just vibrating in my bed, just vibrating. Couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything because there's too much energy. Then the second thing that much energy did when you're trying to go to sleep is I would wake up in altered states. One time I woke up, y'all, it was really freaky for me just because I wasn't used to the state. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know if it was something wrong with me as a result of the ceremony. Is my brain broken? Am I ever going to be normal again? It was freaking me out because I was in such a high state. And when I say high state, I don't mean any type of drug state. I mean, it felt like my spirit was pulled out of my body and put back in no specific orientation. It felt like they just threw my spirit back in my body and was like, boop, close me up. And it wasn't oriented right because I was super aware of the fact that I was a spirit in a physical avatar, the body. And so I was having so much trouble because it felt like the interface between my soul and my body was not correct. It needed some fine tuning, it needed some adjusting, and I had to figure out how to readjust to connect again to the body. Honestly, it reminded me of Avatar, because in Avatar, they use avatars, the little humans, they get into the avatar bodies and that's how they interact with reality. That's what it felt like. It felt like I was a soul in a body, which I am, a soul in a body, and my interfacing just was off, wasn't correct. So I was having these out of body experiences. One day, I didn't do the little exercise I normally do, and I just tried to go to sleep. Y'all, when I woke up, I was laying on my back. When I woke up, it felt like energy layers of my body were floating one on top of the other, one on top of the other. And like the essence of who I was not in my body. That's the only way I can explain it, because it's sometimes really hard to explain these spiritual phenomena or experiences, because it's like the words are lacking. It's like parts of me were floating, not my physical body. Parts of my energetic body was floating. My consciousness was not in my body. It was up there. And it was weird because I woke up. I didn't know what was happening for a moment. I didn't know my name. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know why I was. I didn't know what I was. And then I panicked. And then everything just went zoop and came back in me. I was like, okay, my name is Akil. I am in this place. I just did this ceremony. So if your body is not used to that much light, random things will be happening to you that you're not controlling, that are out of your control, and that can be very scary. And when something is scary and you're in that state, fear builds up, and fear and that state just aren't friends. It's just a recipe for disaster. So you have to increase your body's energetic capacity to hold light. Yoga is something that helps your body to align and have those energies flow through you naturally. And it's really, really, really helpful to get into before ayahuasca and just for life in general. Like any of these things to prepare for ayahuasca, like you can't lose out in learning them. Like they are the helpful things in life. All right, anything else for preparation? No, I think that's it. So in the ayahuasca ceremony, I'm pretty sure this is it from all of them, but don't quote me. This is what happened in mine. You have 3 doses. You have a large dose, a medium dose, and a small dose. You can choose what dose you would like. Me with my bright self, me with my nuff self, I was like, give me the large dose, blast me away. Y'all, honestly, I'm a person who a cup of coffee will keep me up if I drink it after 12. Well, in the past. I'm not like that no more, because ayahuasca rearranged the hell out of my body. I'm the person who everything affects really strongly. But because I know I've been feeling the call to do this for a very long time, I said, you know what, light me up. Give me the large dose. Would I recommend the large dose to a first-time person? No. I would not recommend the small dose either, because for your first time, you want to make sure that you're getting the experience. And so I would recommend you start with a medium dose. Some people's bodies are filled with a lot more energetic blocks, and some people will take a medium dose and not feel anything, or it takes a while. Do not worry if you don't know which person you are. I would say the safe way is to take the medium dose. They normally ask if anyone wants seconds halfway through. If you're not feeling as much as you would like, then you can take another dose. Do not start with the large dose. So anyway, I took my large dose, y'all. And then I sat down on my little mat bed thing on the floor. put on my eye patch. So they made you put on, not eye patch, why did I say eye patch? They make you wear, well, at least with this facilitator, what do you call the things where when you're sleeping, you put it over your eyes so you don't see light? I can't remember what it's called, but those eye things, so that you can keep the experience inward, right? So I put on my little eye thing. I was laying flat on my back, y'all. I was like, this is fine. I'm excited. I am ready. And to give you a bit more context, I was very called to do ayahuasca. And I want to put in a little note here. Don't do ayahuasca to follow spiritual trends. Only do ayahuasca if you feel you're being called to do ayahuasca. Like it's something that you need to do as a part of your journey. And if you're not being called right now, don't worry. It doesn't mean that you won't be in the future. There just comes this sense over you that this is something that you need to do to get to the next level, to continue on your journey. I was being called to it. And what I heard in my meditations, or what I heard when I got downloads, was, you're about to die, Akil. I said, Hababa, what? You're about to die. And you need to have this death in order to start the second phase of your life. And I had this overwhelming sense that I have done everything that I needed to do in this half of my life, in this section of my life. Because the week before the ayahuasca ceremonies, there was just this peace over me that there's nothing else I needed to do. I just need to relax and enjoy these next 5 or 7 days leading up to the ceremony, because my cycle has been completed. Until this experience happens, there's nothing more for me to do. It's finished. It's over. And so this death needs to happen. This ego death needs to happen. This sort of spiritual death needs to happen so a new version of me can come through, because this new version of me is the version that can do the things that I'm supposed to do in this next section of my life. And so I kind of went into it knowing that a sort of death was going to be happening. And it's crazy because I heard those things. And then as I was doing more research on ayahuasca during those 7 days waiting, like leading up to it, I saw that it was called, and I can't remember the exact phrase, but something about the plant of death, or some sort of death thing, as in ayahuasca gives you an ego death when you take it. It's like parts of you that do not serve you die during that ceremony, and the parts that you need, the parts that are aligned with who you are, is what's resurrected when you get up and out of that ceremony. And that is exactly what happened for me. I closed my eyes, I was just there, and I'm waiting with my eyes closed. I'm like, bring it, ayahuasca, come on. And the facilitator explained 2 schools of thought when it comes to an ayahuasca ceremony. The school of thought that says you just close your eyes and allow ayahuasca as a teacher to bring you where she knows you need to go. So you go with the flow, go with the wave. Then the other school of thought is that the visions and the sights that ayahuasca brings to you are a distraction, that you should focus on your intention. And when you see those visions, try to ask again and bring it back to what you're here to do, or what you're here to find out, what you're here to gain clarity on. Now, initially, I was with the first school of thought. I was like, you know what? I'm going to allow ayahuasca to search me and bring me in the direction that I need to go. But at the beginning of it, I kind of decided to do a combination of them both. I set an intention, and the intention that I set for my first ceremony is, help me to remember the truth of who I am. Help me to remember the truth of who I am. My whole life, I've always had this feeling that I'm not remembering something. There's something important that I'm not remembering about myself, about who I am. And as my spiritual gifts developed, I've always had like clairvoyance, clairaudience from I was a child. I used to hear what I refer to as double talk. Like when someone speaks to me, I hear the words they say, but underneath the words, I also hear their intention. And I used to think that that's like normal. until I grew up and I was like, oh, Akil, that's not normal. Not everyone hears people's intentions along with their words. And so there was that aspect. There was the dream aspect. I used to have such vivid, such realistic dreams as a child. Sometimes I would get visions that actually came true. Like I would see a scene in my mind, and then 3 months down the road or next week, that specific thing came through. Like I've seen my mom in an accident. The next day she has the accident. I've seen a hurricane scene, and like we had a hurricane, and when I went outside, it was the exact same scene that I saw a few months before. So I've had a lot of these spiritual phenomena happen to me. And that's why when people say, well, how can you believe blah, 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 blah? Like, it's silly to believe. I'm like, it's not just a belief. It's my actual experience. And so when you have an experience with certain things, there's nothing that anybody else can say outside of you to convince you otherwise. It's like me looking outside my window and I see the sun and I see the clouds, and someone's trying to convince me that there's no sun and clouds. I'm like, but it's right there. You can't convince me of that. I'm looking at it. That's how my life has always been with spirituality. And so I set the intention to remember the truth of who I am, because that's a underlying subconscious thing that's always been running for me. And y'all, did she show me the truth of who I was? Did she show me? She sure did. She sure did. It started with, you know, when you close your eyes, you see blackness. I normally see, like, you know, the old TVs where there's no cable attached, the little noise, and you see the little pixels just vibrating in the computer screen, like the little black and white pixels. I normally see something like that. If I'm in a certain frequency or a certain state, I'll see geometry, like those little pixels start to make geometric. Why can't I talk? Those pixels start to make geometric shapes. That normally happens when I'm getting downloads, but it was pitch black. It was like pitch black. That's when I know I'm in some sort of like really focused state or altered state. It was just like black, like what space should look like. And then you start to see a spark of color. And you're like, oh, look at that. I saw a green. I saw a purple. I saw blue. I'm like, wow, look at these colors. And at first it comes like just a blotch of paint. Like if someone had a big paintbrush and just went bloop, and just a blotch of paint just dropped somewhere. That's what it looks like at the start. And the colors change. And then before you know it, it goes from a blotch of paint to your whole perspective is filled with colors. Colors everywhere. I don't think I've ever seen such bright colors in my life. And they take over your whole field of vision, and it's really cool and pretty. And that's when it's just starting to take effect. It hasn't really started yet, you know. This is like the pre-intro to the intro. So you're there, you're enjoying your colors as it takes over your field of vision. Then those colors start to take on shapes. And you see all these geometric shapes. I don't know if you've seen any of like the Ayahuasca paintings. Like they literally look like that. Because I looked up some of the Ayahuasca paintings and I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally seeing some of the patterns and shapes that I saw in the paintings. These green, it's a lot of green, lots of green, which makes sense. It's a plant teacher, right? Lots and lots of greens, lots and lots of geometric patterns that just take over. And the patterns get small, and then big. And the colors change, and then you're mesmerized. And you know what it reminds me of now that I think about it? Outside of the experience, it reminds me of if you ever watch any of those shows where they have like mind control things, like when they're trying to mind control someone by like showing them like a movie or watching something on a computer screen. It's always the screen goes blank and then full of like patterns. I just made that correlation, which is quite interesting because it looks a lot like that, because those patterns mesmerize you, and like it's almost like those patterns are leading you out of physical reality. And so you watch the patterns, and y'all, if you've ever done weed and done too much, it reminds me of that in the feeling, because you think that's it. Like if it stays at that level, it's like, yeah, man, this is cool. This is fine. But then you feel it in the background of your perception ramping up to dump more on you. And you're like, wait a minute, there's more. And then a wave comes whoosh. And then it's like, whoa. And it's like you're brought out to sea with that wave. And then the things become more intense, because now it's when the first wave comes, it's no longer pretty pictures that you're enjoying. You are pushed into the pictures. And now the pictures become your reality. The pictures itself become your physical reality. The pictures become so real that it's like, if you're not ready, it freaks you out. It's like, wait a minute. If you've watched Doctor Strange, you've seen a bit of what ayahuasca is like. You've seen a bit, especially, I'm not good with the names of the ones, but especially that one where there was a girl. Is it a girl? I think it was a girl. Yeah, a girl who could walk through dimensions. And it starts with them fighting some kind of monster in some dimension, and they kept jumping through dimensions. That's what happens in ayahuasca. The colors and the patterns that you're seeing, you first see them in the way a human would see colors and patterns. Like, oh, that's a pretty painting. That's a pretty picture. But then it's like someone shoves you in the back, boom, and pushes you into the pretty picture. And the pretty picture is now your physical reality. And so you're looking around at this color dimension. And this color dimension is your reality. This color dimension is real. Color is as physical as this mic is, or your bed is, or your chair is. And it's like, but how? And so while you're engrossed in trying to figure out how this could be, you feel it in the background ramping up again to push you through. Y'all. Then the facilitator starts singing. And this is the thing, the shamans, during the ceremony, they sing what is called Icarus. And these are ancient songs that help the medicine weave through your energy, weave through your body, weave through your mind. Y'all. You see, when that woman started to sing, at first I didn't know what it did, but I figured it out when she started to sing the first song. Because you're seeing the colors and the dimension starts to become real, the color dimension. And then she starts singing, and you're hearing her in the room like normal, but then all of a sudden she fades away as if she's walking away and disappearing, but it's your mind that's disappearing. The song is almost like a boat, and the boat of the song is carrying you away from physical reality and out into energetic dimensions. And she's singing and she's carrying you, and she's getting further and further away. Well, I'm getting further and further away. She's still right there. And as the song sounds like it's getting further and further away, you become completely engulfed in whatever it is ayahuasca needs to show you first. And it's weird because there are moments where you don't remember that you're in an ayahuasca ceremony, and that's why you're seeing these things. And then there are moments where you're pulled out and you're like, oh yeah, I'm in a ceremony. I'm on ayahuasca, and that was being shown to me for me to understand something. So it's crazy because it makes me think about physical reality, right? In ayahuasca, in certain what do I call it, scenes that she shows you, you're unaware that it's ayahuasca and you're being shown a scene. It feels like, oh, this is me in it. Then I'm like, wait, but then I'm sure that physical reality is physical reality. Is physical reality physical reality? Or is it that when we go to sleep and we dream, we're in physical reality? That's the thing with ayahuasca. Reality becomes relative. Can you handle that? Reality becoming relative? Think about it. So they're the songs that carry you away. Okay, and then the next thing about ayahuasca that's super interesting is the fact that there is a very live, very present spirit guide guiding you through the experience. If you've ever done weed, done too much, you just get super high. You could go to dimensions and stuff like that, but there isn't a specific guide in there speaking to you and showing you things. If you've ever done mushrooms, that's another like completely different experience. And when I did it, I put on meditation music and I closed my eyes. I was in meditation pose, and that was a beautiful experience, right? But again, there was not a specific guide. With ayahuasca, there is a plant guide. It sounded to me like a woman's voice guiding you, specifically speaking to you. And you hear her. I don't hear her outside in physical reality. You hear her in your mind, but she is just as loud as I am speaking to you right now. Like, you cannot mistake it. Like, there is something, like, you ask your intention, and as the visuals start to go, I heard something like, let me show you the truth about who you are. Boom, I was pushed through dimensions. I was pushed through color dimensions. I was pushed through pattern dimensions. I was pushed through dimensions where I saw reptilians. I was pushed through dimensions where I saw insects as people, if that makes sense. I was just pushed. And as I was going through the dimensions, and I saw it kept ramping up. And it was pushing me more and more through dimensions. And I saw more and more. And then it came to a point where I said to the guide, I said, this is too much. And she said, keep going. I said, no, this is too much. And it was like I was being shown all the dimensions that exist, all the realities that exist, to help me to understand that my reality isn't the reality, it is a reality. And my mind was being crushed under the weight of that understanding. Anyone who asked me about my experience, I said, listen, ayahuasca took me within a hair's breadth away of madness and then turned me around and led me away. Because the knowledge of those dimensions, the knowledge of those other beings is heavy. It's really heavy. The knowledge of the fabric that reality and other dimensions is made up of is heavy. It's a lot for the human brain. I grew up very Christian, and anytime the presence of God manifested itself in the physical realm in the Bible, you see people talking about hiding their face in the presence of God. And I understood that in theory, but in actuality, me and my bright self, I was like, why do you need to hide your face in the presence of God? God is a God that loves you. God is a God, like, if he's manifesting himself there, it's because he wants to speak to you. He wants to give you something. Do you know what I mean? Like, he wants to relate to you. So why do you hide your face in the presence of God? Yahoo. When ayahuasca showed me the things that she did, I tried to hide my face, but I couldn't. I tried to hide and run and to not look, but I had to look. And in the moment, I wished I could hide, and I couldn't. And that's when I understood there are certain things that the human mind is not meant to know. There's certain things that humans aren't meant to know, because the knowledge of these things will break your fragile mind. The human mind is actually very fragile, at least in the state that it is in the present. I don't know when we're years ago if we were able to use more of our minds and our minds were stronger, but at the state that we're in right now, the human mind is fragile, and you cannot handle certain concepts and certain realities all at once. That's just a fact. And it's crazy. It's crazy because as someone who has always had a spiritual upbringing, whether Christian and metaphysical, because remember, even though I was Christian, a lot of these metaphysical things were happening to me. And I want to say that I hate the distinction between Christianity and spirituality, or Christianity and metaphysicalness or metaphysicality. I don't know if that's a word, but there's this line of demarcation that has weakened Christianity. And I'm going to do an episode about it. Because when you separate spirit from religion, what you have left in religion is a bag of rules that hurt people. And that's what's happened to most of Christianity. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. So I was being pushed through dimensions. My mind was breaking. I was saying to her, this is too much. She says no, pushed me more through dimensions. Then I thought about asking for help from the facilitator. And this is where a pattern of mine shifted, a subconscious pattern that's been holding me back. I will help everyone in the world. I will help, even if I grumble and do it, I will do it. I will help you if you need help. When I need help, nobody knows. When I need help, I will sit in my bed and rot. I would rather die than ask for help. And that pattern was the first one to shift because it was so much for me. My mind was breaking. It was too much for me. I needed someone to give me some strength. I needed someone to help me. And ayahuasca was like, are you going to sit here and go crazy or are you going to ask for help? I was like, okay, bitch, I'm going to ask for help. So I thought about it for a while and I kept trying. You know what it's like? You know when you have a dream and you're trying to like say something or ask for help or yell or something and nothing's coming out of your mouth and you're trying hard and nothing is coming out of your mouth? That was what was happening to me. I feel like it almost took me half an hour to be able to verbalize that I needed help. But eventually I heard my feeble voice far away say, help. And then the facilitator, she came over to me. She said, did you say you needed help? I said, yes. So she sat down beside me. She's like, how can I help you? I was like, this is too much. I told her, can you make it smaller? She said, what? I said, can you tone it down? Can you make it less? She said, no, I can't make it less. I said, okay, make it stop. I said, I need this to stop. She said, what's wrong? I said, this is too much. I kept repeating that through my first ceremony. I said, this is too much. I looked her I said, this is too much. And I'm going to pause there. Well, actually, let me finish telling the pattern first and then go back. She held my hand and she whispered to me and she said, ayahuasca will never give you more than you can handle. She said, if you are seeing something or you're experiencing something, it's because ayahuasca knows you can handle it. And the only way out is through. Those words sunk in. And I was like, okay. And I closed my eyes and I went back. And in that moment, I realized, Akil, it's okay to ask for help. She sat beside me for a while. She held my hand. She pat my back. I started to cry. I started to release emotions through crying. She held my hand. She wiped my tears. She was so there for me. And that's what I needed to shift that pattern of not being able to receive. Because I had a huge pattern of not being able to receive. And I wonder why income was always up and down for me. Because that involves receiving. Relationships were up and down for me because that involves receiving. My relationship with my family was a bit strained because that involved an ability to receive. Anywhere in my life that involved receiving was blocked. And ayahuasca was like, that's the first place we're gonna just boom, push through and shift. And that's the beautiful thing about ayahuasca. It's not just a high, it's an emotional healer. It's a subconscious healer. Because after ayahuasca, when I checked with all the things that I was working with to shift in my subconscious, fear around money, scarcity mindset around money, scarcity mindset around love and receiving love, whether that's from a partner or from family or from anyone, all of the things I struggled with that I would have to do my EFT tapping to get rid of or journal to get rid of, and then they'll come back and you journal again, and then they come back and you tap again, and then they come. Like this practice that I was doing that would get me to a certain level, then I go back, then get me to a certain level, then I go back. All of that is gone after ayahuasca. Disappeared, disintegrated. I have them no more. All of these fears that held me in place, fears that I didn't even know was holding me in place. Disintegrated, gone. Ayahuasca dissolved them all. Self-worth issues, self-love issues, issues with my skin tone, issues with my body type, disintegrated, gone. And that is the power of ayahuasca. That is the power of that plant medicine. I don't want to make this too long, but I realize I still haven't even told you like half of my ceremony. Going back to the guide itself, the plant medicine guide, she's talking to you. She's talking to you. And when you ask, she says, okay, and shift. So when she was pushing me through dimensions, again, when you're going through that scenery, that scene, I'm going to call it, it is your reality. And then she'll pull you out, and then you hear her ask, do you understand? She said, do you understand who you are? You are part of these dimensions. You are not just this physicality. Do you understand? I said, yes. And then the scene changes again, and she shows you something else, and she pushes you deep into that reality, and you go through it, and then you go, she pulls you back, and then you hear, do you understand? This is why you were shown this, because you are this. And then she pushes you through something else, and then pulls you back and says, do you understand? And it's like every time she shows you something, she peels back another layer of understanding in your mind. Because the problem with the human brain is, or with human society, we've been programmed to only learn through theoretical understanding. Life is the experiential teacher, and ayahuasca is the ultimate experiential teacher. So instead of learning through 5 years all the relationship lessons you need to learn through 10 different relationships with 10 different people, and 10 different times you have to cry and be upset and learn the lessons, ayahuasca pushes you through scenarios in that one ceremony and pushes you through those 10 scenarios so that you can understand it in 5 hours. And so it's definitely I don't want to say shortcut, because shortcut has gotten this negative connotation of laziness or not wanting to do the work. Because believe me, honey, you're doing the work in those ceremonies, and you're doing the work after those ceremonies, because ayahuasca's work continues after. And I'm going to do an episode on integration, because that was the hardest part, the integration after ayahuasca. But yeah, so instead of going through 5 or 6 years of bad relationships to learn your self-worth, to learn who you are, to learn to set up boundaries, ayahuasca will push you through the scenarios during the ceremony. And it's like you've gone through those 6, 7, 8 relationships in the ceremony and learned those lessons, and you came out on the other side, right? And so she teaches you through experience in the space of 5, 6, 7 hours what you would have learned in 5, 6, 7 years. And that's the power of this plant medicine. So even some of the things have already disappeared from my mind, but the lessons have stayed. The lessons have stayed. There are things that do still stick out. Like I was shown how much I didn't appreciate my body. The whole ceremony, my hands were doing things without my control. As in, my hands were going up and down my body, patting my body. And every time it pat my body, I heard, love this body, Akil. So it's like she was moving my hands over my body, and I kept hearing, love this body, Akil, love this body. And it showed me all the things this body has carried me through. And she also blasted love for my body through my body. And so I was able to feel the love for my body. That switched a lot for me. The other thing that came up strongly was loving the skin that I'm in. She pushed me through, I don't know if it was memories or past events of ancestors, and showed me how much they fought for my ability to be where I am today, showed me their pain, showed me their hurt, showed me their determination and their love for each other, showed me them fighting for rights, fighting for the right to be, fighting for the things that I take for granted every day. And I heard her specifically say, she showed me all of that, right? And I felt the pain. I felt the bondage. I felt the hurt. I felt how dehumanized they were. I felt it all. And then she pulled me out of this. And then she said, how dare you not love the skin that you're in? How dare you take for granted the skin that you're in after all this sacrifice, after all this pain, after all the people before you that fought, gave their lives for you to be proudly in this skin. And I was like, whew, took my breath away. She also showed me the underbelly of reality. I don't know how to explain this one, so I might not dwell on it too long. I saw the energies and the frequencies and the energy grids that make up electrons and atoms. I saw the texture of reality that was made up of light and energy. She showed me all of those things and said, do you understand? This is what you are. You are this divine frequency. She showed me this divine light that was so bright and consuming and said, do you understand? This is God. This is who you are. You are a part of this. And I found it really interesting because I was always taught that to say that you are God or to say that God is in you is pompous and lacks humility. But when I think about it, I was shown that and I thought to myself, the Bible, growing up Christian, the Bible talks about the fact that Adam was made from dirt and then God breathed life into his body, which means that a piece of God went into Adam and that's what animated him with life. Now, if you have a big rock and you drop it and a piece breaks off, is it not still the same as the rock, just a smaller piece of the rock? Each and every one of us is animated by a piece of God, a piece of divine light, a piece of God's energy is in us. That's what makes us alive. Therefore, we are little gods walking around. We are little pieces of God experiencing itself. And so there are many theories out there like the Sophia and other spiritual theories that talk about the fact that we are all divine light. We're all God. I just wish traditional religion will catch up to that fact. Anyway, again, that's a story for another episode. So she showed me the divine light. She showed me all of that. She showed me so many things. And what I find interesting as I'm wrapping up this episode is physical reality and spiritual reality seems to be separated by a veil of amnesia, because there was much more that happened during that ceremony that I remembered weeks after that. Now, I can't remember some of those details. I remember some of the big things and I remember the lessons, but I can't remember the details of some of the things that I've seen. As my mind and my body physically get farther away from the experience, it's like you start to forget. It reminds me of a dream. If you had a dream, when you just wake up, you'll remember the details of the dream. Sometimes you still don't remember, but sometimes you wake up and you remember the dream. You remember the details. You remember how you felt in the dream. You remember who said what in the dream. You remember what happened. And then at the end of the day, after you go to your job or whatever it is you do, and you interact with physical reality, by the time you try to remember that dream after interacting with physical reality for a while, it's gone. You remember that you had a dream, you remember that something like this happened, but you cannot remember the details. It's like as you interact or get more immersed in physicality, spirituality fades away behind the veil of amnesia. And I find that really, really, really interesting. The other, like another example of that is, as an adult, you might be able to remember certain events, like something huge that happened to you as a child. But think about when you were 2 years old. You can't remember anything from when you were 2 years old. You can't remember most of your toddler childhood stage until you get a little older. Why is that? And they say that babies and toddlers, they're still closer in the spiritual realm than they are in the physical realm. And I'm like, again, that veil of amnesia strikes again. So it's interesting because it seems like the texture of that veil, it's textured with amnesia. And it's like, how can we solve that? Does it need to be solved? Can you dissolve that veil of amnesia? People like me and other people who are even more advanced than me, who've been, in on our spiritual practice for a while, we've developed the ability to remember more when we have experiences, but it's something you have to train yourself to do. Is there a way to dissolve that amnesia altogether? And if you dissolve that amnesia altogether, will the physical and the spiritual become one? Will those dimensions integrate for you? Because it almost feels like that's what ayahuasca did to me as well. And I'll explain more about that in the episode about integration. It's like it exposed the spiritual world in such a physical way. I always knew it was there. I always felt its touch. I always heard its call. But ayahuasca, made it even more real. It made the texture of that realm even more real than I was ever used to. I almost want to say ayahuasca starts to dissolve that veil for you, dissolve that veil of amnesia, and so everything starts to integrate together. And if you're not ready for that integration process, my friend, if you are not ready for that integration process, madness ensues. Sometimes I look around at people who are talking to themselves. Of course, there are people who are born sick, and sick by sick, I mean mind imbalances. But a lot of people are stuck in the spiritual realm. They see things that we don't see. They talk to people that we don't see. It's not necessarily that there isn't no one there. There's no one there in physical reality. And some people, it amazes me when religious people scoff at spiritual concepts. Because it's like, how can you believe in a God and not believe in the things, the metaphysical things that spirituality speaks about? Because where do you think God exists? God clearly doesn't exist in physical reality. He is not contained in physical reality, or else we would see him every day. He's contained in other dimensions higher than the physical plane. So it's like, do you know what you believe? Like, what's going on there? Like, make it make sense. Anyway, y'all, I'm going to leave it there for my first ceremony. The next episode is going to be about my second ceremony. And my second ceremony is where the darkness ensued. The darkness ensued. That was quite an experience, and I cannot wait to share it with you. If you haven't done so already, check the show notes below. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on TikTok. I'm always making spiritual content, revealing spiritual mysteries. And after this ayahuasca ceremony, guys, I am filled with content. I am filled with information. So many channeled messages have come to me about manifestation, about alchemy, of light alchemy in this life. And I think that information is going to change a lot of lives. So I cannot wait to share it with you. Follow on Instagram, follow on TikTok. Check out my website. I have tons of programs that will help to raise your level of consciousness. Because there is a wave happening right now. There are energies being blasted through this planet to help human consciousness evolve and elevate. But if you're not in a place to receive those frequencies, it will wash over you and you will remain unchanged. And I want to also say that people think spirituality is just like up in the air. But honey, most of the extremely rich people you see on this planet are in tune spiritually. They're in tune energetically. Don't let them fool you. They have astrologers, they do their meditation practices, they do their wellness practices. They are in tune with their body, they are in tune with their mind, and they're in tune with their spirit. Spirituality has real everyday consequences. And if you're not tuning in, you're missing out. Guys, I'll see you in my next episode.